Hey, welcome back to Frank's Model Works. I'm Frank. This is episode 7 of the body finishing tutorial, which is going to cover, in this episode, wet sanding. Polishing will be in episode 8, but they're both going to come out this week. Let's get right to it. Alright, so we have my sanding arsenal and polishing arsenal out in front of me. Because of the condition of the bodies we're going to be polishing, I don't see any need to go below 3000 grit, and I'm going to be starting with the 3M 3000 grit Trizact paper, product number 30190. In addition, I'm going to also be using the Trizact 5000 grit, which comes in a box which is labeled 30189. There'll be links in the description. I also like to use Tamiya polishing cloths as both an application for polish and just rubbing out into small corners and stuff like that. As far as sanding, besides the Trizact, I most likely will not be using, in fact I know for a fact I'm not going to be using the Display sets that I've been using up to this point, because that set only goes up to 2500 grit, which is going to be a little bit too aggressive for what we're going to be doing. So that said, I am going to, for the most part, only be using, out of the GodHand set, which I will also link to in the description, I will probably not use the 4000, and probably not use the 6000 grit. I think I'm going to be able to get most of the wet sanding done that I need to get done on the green body with the 3000 Trizact, the 5000 Trizact, the 8000 from GodHand, and the 10,000 grit from GodHand. Once I'm done wet sanding, I will then apply this product, which is Meguiars ScratchX, to try to remove whatever scratches in the surface remain. By that point, once I get to the 10,000 grit, it'll be kind of shiny, the finish. It'll just be a little bit hazy. So what this does is this'll help eliminate most of the scratches that are left. And I'm going to show you, one of the bodies is actually wet sanded and polished, and I'm going to show you how it looks and what we're going for. But this is readily available at most auto supply stores. I think even some supermarkets carry it. But it is Meguiars ScratchX. Good stuff. And then I use Meguiars number 105 Ultra Cut Compound as a polish. Once I've wet sanded and polished the body parts, I'll usually proceed with construction of the model, and then one of the final steps that I'll do is add wax once all the foiling and stuff like that has been done. Another useful tool, I don't know what this is called now, there will be a link in the description. This is a cordless, rechargeable, it's kind of like a rotary tool, but it moves pretty quick. And this is a cotton, this is a wool ball for polishing. It just helps move things along quicker. You can apply your polish. I'll have a link to these are by Tamiya. These are polish applicators. They're kind of useful. They come in a couple of different sizes. There'll be a link in the description. You can apply the polishes onto the surface with these, and then use elbow grease and one of these cloths to work the body, which is fine, but this actually moves things along pretty quickly. So I'm gonna show you what I've done so far. So this is the rear valance for the 69 Charger, the front valance for the 69 Charger. These were the only things that need to be polished as far as the rest of the parts that were painted body color. So these have already been polished. This is the hood on the 69. That's also been polished. It hasn't been waxed yet, but it's been wet sanded and polished. And here is the body for the 69 Charger. So we have a fairly distinct reflection in the trunk. I'm not going to reveal what the vinyl top, I don't even know what the vinyl top looks like yet, because I want to take the tape off, and we'll find that out together in the series on putting a mod top on top of your model car. But this has been wet sanded and polished. It's by no means perfect, but I got most of the boogers out. It still retains a very nice metallic finish. It looks like a 1969 B7 blue Dodge Charger. So I'm happy with the way that turned out. So what we're gonna do now is, I didn't even check this. Let's see if these are the same color. Oh, that's good. Close enough, right? What do you think? Yeah, it's about the same color. So I will move these out of the way. I will get set up, and I will be right back, because we are going to wet sand and polish this body. Okay? Hold on. Alright, the first thing that we're going to polish on the 68 Charger body is going to be the hood. The hood looks okay, but if you could see right there, there's a little imperfection in it that needs to be sanded out. There's a couple little flecks of dust. Really inconvenient one right there, if you could see. So we got to be careful we're not gonna burn through. Like I mentioned before, on a 69 Charger body, I can actually take this off of this. If you do use poster putty, you see there's a little bit on there. You just use itself to remove what might be on there. This had actually pulled off before, but this part right here, where the poster putty was stuck to, it's going to get painted black anyway, for the underhood padding. So there's that. This peak is something you got to really kind of avoid not touching. So I'll see if I can find a link to this, the Infinity Easy Cutting Type A. This is a cutting mat that has like a grid in it, so you could put washi tape on it and then cut out really thin lines, 1 millimeter, 0.9 up to 0.4. Very useful. I'll see if I can find the link and post that in the description as well. So my plan of action is going to be start with a wet sand of 3000 grit Trizact to get out the dust, particles of dust, and any imperfections that are in the clear. move up to 5,000 Trizact, and then from there probably proceed to the GodHand 8,000 and 10,000 grit wet sanding. Then after that, ScratchX will be applied with this applicator, rubbed out with this, then an application of compound, which will also be rubbed out with this. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to probably speed this up. So see you on the other side. Okay, so as you can see, I've deadened down and flattened down the finish. Hopefully I've removed the blemish that was there, but hopefully subsequent grits and steps in the polishing process will get rid of it as much as possible. It doesn't seem to go very deep. It doesn't look like it was a piece of dust. It could have just been something, I don't know, weird. I try not to think too much about what's in the paint. I just concentrate on getting it out. So I'm done with the Trizact 3000. I'm gonna move on now to the Trizact 5000. If you see, like, I'm wiping away the water with this tissue. These are the Kimtech science wipes that there'll be another link in the description if you want to get these. So on to the 5000 grit and back to silence. Okay, here we have the hood after 5000 grit. You could see it's starting, I mean, by no means shiny, but it's not dead flat like it was after the 3000 grit. I'm not going to say this without knocking on wood, but it doesn't appear that I've burned through anywhere yet. So I'll move on to the 8,000 grit and 10,000 grit from GodHand. Hold on a second. We will now proceed to 8,000 grit from GodHand. When I'm sanding, you could see I'm not really putting a lot of pressure. I'm not really looking to remove material. I'm just looking to smooth material. So you always be careful in areas like here, like these little scoops, because you could burn through there pretty easily. My experience with this peak right here, that's why I put tape there. It's very easy to burn through here. It's especially easy to burn through here when you're compounding using this thing. Just for your own personal edification, if you're ever building a 68 or a 69 Charger, inside of here there's actually turn signals that you gotta paint in order to represent them accurately. It's actually a nice little detail to add. Just so you know. Alright, let's do the 8,000. Shut up, Frank. Let's get to sanding. Hold on. So now, as you can see, there's a little bit of shine starting to come through. It's still very hazy in the finish. We're getting there, but we still have a little bit further to go. So I'm going to do a couple of more swipes with 8,000, and then I'm going to move to the 10,000 grit. And if you're wondering why I didn't go from 5,000 Trizact to 6,000 GodHand, it's because, like I've mentioned before, grits are a highly subjective matter. So a 3M 5,000 grit doesn't necessarily correspond to a GodHand 5000 grit, even though they don't include it in this set. The 6000 grit is actually more coarse in feeling than the 5000 grit Trizact. So the key thing that I'm going to go over this later on, the key thing is always start at a higher grit, a finer grit than you think you need, because it's better to start at a higher grit and then go down to a coarser grit than it is to start at too coarse of a grit and then burn through. So you're better off starting at a higher grit and then realizing, okay, this isn't leveling out my surface, this isn't getting out the dust, I'm not really, let me just step it down a little bit and then attack it from there, rather than say start at 2000 grit and burn through on all your corners and edges and stuff like that. That's what you're trying to avoid. Okay, so after the 10,000 grit, I have a couple of, there's a haze and light scratch marks, not really scratches, but indications that that sandpaper was used. So in order to get rid of that, now I start using the ScratchX. Moving on to the body now. Based on the condition of the clear, again, I'm going to start with the Trizact 3000 grit. If there was serious orange peel going on here, I might start with something a little bit more aggressive. But given that this body is in basically the same shape as the hood, and is basically in the same shape that the B769 Charger was in, I'm going to start with the Trizact 3000. I think that's probably my best move. I doubt very seriously I'm going to have to go from the 3000 to more aggressive. I've only seen a couple of little spots. Now this right here, right on that character line, there's like a little speck of dust right there that might be a little tough, and then there's another one right above the character line, so I got to be really careful there. And again, this becomes a risk-reward kind of thing. I'm looking closely to see if there are dust particles and imperfections in this paint, and I'm going to try to deal with as many as I can. There's one on the roof, right on the trunk right there. And I'll try to get rid of them as best I can. There's one in the door right there. But at this stage of the game, it's not worth me burning through the clear and into the color code and worse in order to get them out. So we'll do what we got to do. All right, that said, I'm going to be quiet and we're going to get to work. This is an area right here. This peak is an area you got to be careful of, and along here as well, and then along here. Just from experience dealing with this style of body, I'm not really putting any pressure as I sand. I'm just, for the most part, I mean, that wet sanding is lubricated sanding to rub down the surface with a slightly coarse grit of sandpaper in order to achieve a smooth surface that is then built back up and polished into a high gloss finish. So I'm not looking to remove material, I'm just looking to smooth material, if you will pardon that cheesy saying. Okay, so I'm coming in here. It would turn out that this thing right here is the embers that I was talking about that have been getting into my paint. Little pieces of coal. So you see that right there. And there's another tiny little one right there, right at the edge of this piece of molding right here. You can see that. So I'm going to try to very, very carefully. So I'm at 3,000 Trizact. I'm going to go down to 4,000 GodHand. Actually, no. Yeah, I'm going to go to 4,000 GodHand because my experience is that's even though it's a higher grit number, like I said, you know, grits among manufacturers are highly subjective at best. So this is a I can feel that this is a grittier, a more coarser grit than this. So I'm going to drop to that to try to get rid of these two pieces, these two little chunks of ember that are stuck in the finish. And hopefully I don't burn through. Again, this is going to wind up being a risk-reward thing. If it looks like I'm going to cut through, I am going to tuck tail and run and just leave it in there. Because at this stage of the game, I really don't feel like doing the kind of touch-up that would be necessary. But we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic. Although the more that I sand, the bigger this thing's getting. I know the urge is going to be for people to say, oh no, it's because the flake. It's not flake. It's too big to be flake. If you could see the flake that's in this paint and see how fine it is, and then look at this glob of whatever this is, then I actually, on purpose, when I did these, I strained the paint and the clear just to make sure there was nothing in it. My airbrushes are always clean, but they're like really clean. So alright, I'm gonna go back to shutting up. Okay, so I've gotten this little spot right here about as good as it's gonna get. It's flattened down, but I don't know if you could see it. I'm starting to lose clear coat here, and it's only a matter of time before I get into paint. The problem is this ember itself is in clear coat, and it is definitely an ember because that was not there. I went over every square millimeter of this body before I put clear coat on. This got in there as I was applying the clear coat. And my experience has been, you know, this time of year, I get embers, I get charcoal. Just happens. Every one of my neighbors has fire pits, so it's all right. I think, honestly, as I progress through the polishing stages, it'll probably all blend in and disappear. It annoys me because it pops out at me and I see it. But the rest of almost the rest, still got a little bit of 3,000 to do over here. All right, I'm gonna move to 5,000 Trizact now. I'm gonna do this here because this trunk is racking my nerves right now, so I'm gonna make sure that this trunk is gonna be okay before anything else. Again, this is not a lot of pressure I'm putting on. basically the weight of my finger. I'm not pressing, I'm not digging in. Let's see, can you see that? You see what I'm talking about? That little speck right there? It's not an ember. Okay. You say so, Chief. If you're wondering when you should dip the abrasive back into the water, I tend to do it by feel. If I start to feel friction, a differential in the friction between when it's wet, like kinda now, and as it's losing its lubrication, because the water is basically just a lubricant. So then what I will do is I will dip it in. And my cue to check and see my progress is if I notice a film, which is basically the clear coat that has been abraded away. Abraded? Debrided? Whatever. Taken away by the abrasive. Once that starts to dry, and I'll take the tissue and wipe and check my progress. Just so you know, from now until the stars burn out, every time I look at this model, my eye is going to go right there. Just so you know, it's going to go right there every time. And let's say I finish this in time for NNL East next year, which is probably going to be the case, I would imagine. You're going to do it too. You're going to go, oh, there's that avocado green Charger Frank was working on. Let's go see that spot in the trunk. The thing that I saw in this door came out. It was a little piece of hair. Not hair, it's like dust from that way is the dryer, and the lint trap doesn't catch all of the lint, so it's a piece of lint. Kind of limited in my workshop space, kiddies, so I make do with what I can, what I can do. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll discuss the importance of uniformity in sanding and wet sanding. The importance of it is if you leave anything untouched in the sanding, even in here, like there's a possibility, even if you have a slight amount of texture, the differential between something that's going to be polished and something that was glossy to begin with but not polished will become glaring. So that's why it's important to have a uniform flattening and wet sanding of the paint. Like right now I'm seeing right here, perfect example. Even though I got to be careful in this area because this is the area that I repaired the trim, you can see there's a little bit right here. Let's see if I can get it with the camera. See right there? That little bit of unsanded paint might pop out if I don't deaden it. And I need a uniform texture before proceeding. I just got to be careful in here because right now my mind is screaming, you're really close to the repair, be careful. Okay, let's see how that looks. All right, we got as much as we can. Okay. Now we will move to, we're done with the Trizact. We're done with the 4000. I did the best I could. At some point, you know, you got to realize I'm going to do more damage than good. So I'm moving to 8,000 of the GodHand. What are these called? GodHand tool. Okay. Sure. Sounds terrific. So you'll notice as I progress through the grits, it requires less and less. Like 8,000 is going to go quicker than 5,000 did. 5,000 went quicker than 3,000 did. And 10,000 will go faster than all of them. Get it? Got it. Good. Shut up, Frank. Okay. We're left with the haze of the 10,000 grit. So now, as before, with the hood, we're going to apply ScratchX. And that was episode 7, just wet sanding. Next episode, polishing. That's coming out the day after this does. So stay tuned and watch it. As always, I got Frizzo's back. I appreciate your support. And until we speak again, my friends, take care of yourselves and be well.